Pimblett and Gordon took place about 2 weeks ago or so, and I'm going to give you the best breakdown now. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to play more devil's advocate for Paddy Pimblett. Everyone's saying he lost and it was so decisive that he lost and it was such a bad loss. I actually don't think it was so decisive. I think that there's an argument to be made either way. I do think that he did indeed probably did lost, but I think the devil's advocate could be played, and it wasn't what people thought it was as far as a theft or robbery or anything goes. And I think an argument could be made that he even won this fight. I'm going to break this down for you, the best for my best, smartest listeners here. The Big B way, that's how we're going to do it. Now, I'd just like to interject here. I'm more proving that Gordon did a very poor job than I am proving that Paddy did an awesome job. And I think that that should be what I'm trying to point out here. And there were some moments that went both ways. We're going to get into it here, though. We're going to start right at 4:30 because this first, they're just kind of feeling each other out. But 4:30, this is the first thing. Paddy's landed a couple, and Gordon's landed just a couple little weak things this first 30 seconds. But this is the first thing that Gordon throws. Now, I want to say, this kind of... That kick right there kind of summed up the fight for Gordon. And first thing that happened, impressions matter. And this is just one thing we're going to point out. That was kind of the impression that Gordon just had. And the impression that Gordon's had leading up to it is he's this uncharismatic, guy. And a lot of people think Paddy's just going to steamroll him just because Paddy is a charismatic type character. And this is something that, frankly, a lot of us don't agree with it, but it does matter in the UFC at this point if we look at how decisions have gone certain ways. Fighters are seeming to get the decision made in their way just based on charisma alone, just not being a short little guy like, Gordon is and have little man syndrome and, or be a big bad Paddy, and that kind of sums it up for this fight. I think that was a taste that Gordon kind of gave in the, judges round. That first little, and I'm going to make Big B just a bit smaller here. But I think that was the taste that the judges had this whole fight, was Gordon just throwing that crappy little kick right there. That was his first impression, and those do matter. And I think that just kind of summed it up right there. And I don't want to say that fight or that King might have lost in the fight, because that's obviously a really silly thing to say. But that definitely didn't do him any favors, because that just didn't look that good. Heading out another little sissy kick there. We move on. 3 minutes and 50. I want to take a look here. Not much. This first round, it's all feeling each other out. And that's what, especially a fighter like Paddy's going to do a lot, use that body length. And I just like to highlight the use of cage space. Paddy's pushing him against cage. He doesn't really do anything with it. Then he takes a good little kick there, Doesn't really land. And Gordon with another kind of weak kick, So I'm just playing devil's advocate for Paddy Pimblett a bit here, I'm not saying that Paddy definitively has an awesome case for him. I'm just kind of saying one could be made. Now, this punch right here, that might have been the most flush, most powerful shot that Gordon landed this whole fight. And Paddy did take it like a champ, which he'll do to a lot of shots, but it went unanswered. That was really good on Gordon's. That was a nice flush punch, just a nice, knock that mullet back just a bit. That was an awesome, and that was in the highlight reel at the end of the round. We move on. 1 minute 50. Like I say, if Gordon, and like even Dana said, You know, Dana misspoke. A lot of people are saying, oh, there's this miscommunication with Dana saying that Gordon took these rounds off. You know, Gordon just sucked the first 2 rounds. You shouldn't, you know, I agree with the mentality. I lose every round, and I need to try my hardest every round. I need to be an underdog and act like I'm behind. And that's the mentality that fighters should have. Should never be coasting, you know. It should never be any of that. And I think that was the point that Dan was trying to make. Oh, Gordon shouldn't have sucked so hard. I agree with Dana. Jordan had or Gordon, whatever, Jordan Gordon, if he hadn't sucked so hard, then, you know, and been so weak a lot of this, it could have definitely went his way. You know, he's throwing weak little hits, and Paddy's not throwing the best, but he's just looking better. He's using better cage space, a little bit better technique, and Gordon's just not really answering, you know. He had that one really flush punch that probably is going to make his highlight reel for his career. Let's be honest here, that guy doesn't have like a ton going for him. Anyhow, we move on here, and I'd just like to interject, you know, I didn't really care who won this fight. I kind of think Paddy, I don't like his personality the most. I kind of hear he begs for money, and Big B doesn't really, you know, he's not much of a beggar, more of a chooser. So, uh, I just don't really, you know, people are gonna say, "Oh, you're a Paddy dick rider." No, I'm not. You know, I'm just giving my unbiased opinion. You know, and I am making a case for him, but you know, I think it could have been called either way. But I want to just make a case for him. You know, I just want to interject here and just say that's kind of what I'm trying to do is just play devil's advocate for the guy. Just I think Gordon sucks so bad that you know, a case could be made for PIMBLETT here. And I don't think everyone's just said, oh, robbery, it was stolen, worst fight of the year. You know, it wasn't that. It wasn't that. And that's kind of what I'm trying to get at here. We're gonna move on a bit. Let's take a look here. You know, Gordon's just not really landing that well. You know, Paddy's just landing a little bit better. And I want to kind of point this out. We're gonna move to 110 here. Now, I want you guys to see this. Look at the damage on Gordon's face. You guys, everyone needs to remember, and gals, you know, that was a not bad punch. It just didn't hit that hard. But look, Jordan's face looks a little bit damaged there. And damaged is part of the scoring criteria, is who looks more damaged. You know, it might not be the best rule, but it's definitely something. And look, he looks a little bit more damaged than Paddy does. His nose is a little bit messed up, a little bit bruising above the eye. Paddy, he looks pretty fresh right here. He hasn't really been landed on much at all, you know. You know, he's not throwing the best. He's just using his space a lot better. You know, that could have landed. He's using his, you know, body length. And the way his body was blessed is, you know, working a lot to his advantage right here. And that's probably why he got it, you know. It's just because he had better space management, and that was shown a lot, especially in this first round. You know, Gordon even had him against Cage a couple times. Couldn't do anything with it. Had him backed up on his back foot against Cage, and couldn't do anything with it either. We're going to move on here. 45 seconds. You know, there's Gordon pushing him up. He can make a move right here, but he's not going to do anything. He's just going to kind of take it, you know. Paddy's not going to hit that hard. But, you know, here he is. Jordan has him on his back feet against Cage. Is he going to do much with it? No. Oh, yeah, I wanted to highlight this, too. I was going to skip. We'll stay here. What a takedown, Paddy. Just from a wrestling perspective here. Look at the way his center of gravity is. This isn't a takedown at all. Look. If he had dropped to a single and just focused on the single, or even a double right here, he could have got it. He could have got this right here. Instead, he goes for the, you know, Gordon smartly, with his wrestling intellect, he repositions his hips. then Paddy goes, and this is just throwing away the position, you know. He goes for the trip for some reason. Taller guys have a hard time. I mean, it works, but a lot of times they have a little bit of a hard time tripping shorter guys. And look, Jordan with his wrestling IQ, he fights the hips, gets on top, and doesn't really do anything with it as to be expected. You know, he gets some weak shots off. You know, a few misses. You know, I didn't even want to play a whole lot of this because it's not really that interesting. He just kind of wet blankets him, to be honest. A couple weak little shots in there. We wanted to end at 5. You know, and this is good on Paddy too. And this is going back playing devil's advocate for a bit. Here at 5 seconds, I've let it play a little bit. Paddy's been doing this good. He's locking his hands so Jordan can't get the hardest shots off, making it hard for him. Just holding on, riding out the end of the round, you know, which was the smart thing to do with just 30 seconds left. And I think that's why this round could be scored Paddy, is because he had pretty good intellect riding bottom there. You know, he initiated that takedown. You know, Jordan was just kind of able to reverse it on him. There's kind of a lot going on in that exchange. Yeah, Jordan was on top at the end and landing shots down, but definitively they weren't that hard. Paddy was doing well on the bottom, working good with his hands, and making sure the shots weren't hitting with full authority and full force like they could have been. We're going to move on here. Round number 2. Big B's going to break it down. I know since you guys are in Yales are all smarter than the average baboon, you guys already are probably seeing a bit what I'm talking about. I know you guys already are. We're going to go on and I'm just going to highlight what really is going on here, and you'll get this devil's advocate idea. I think you'll especially get it even more a bit in round number 2 here. Start of the round isn't that exciting, so we're going to move right to 420, just some more butt touch, really. And Paddy throws a nice kick here at lands. That made a really good noise. I sounded added some like Hollywood effects, you know. It sounded really good, and the commentators, of course, you know, they're always going to hype it up because they get a little one side. Gordon returns there, pretty good hit. And I just want to point out that Paddy's looking a bit gassed here. Like, if you see him, he's breathing. You know, he kind of just looks like, I don't know, he breathes out his mouth. He must have a messed up nose or something, possibly. You know, maybe not, but he does some mouth breathing. And, you know, it's something that just makes you look tired. It just doesn't look the best in the fight thing. Everyone knows these things, you know, so I think that's a lot of the reason why people say Paddy lost is because he just looked gassed. And, you know, Gordon's not going to look gassed, you know. He's like a little, you know, ex-crackhead or whatever, you know. He's never going to get gassed. Those guys are like, going to be crazy and wired all day, you know. You would know. You do know because you probably go out and live a bit like I do. You know, Gordon, you know, firing off Gordon, but Paddy's looking gassed again. You know, he's mouth breathing, you know, and he's not fighting gas per se, maybe a little bit. He's just looking gassed, you know. And I think you know, but Sean Strickland looked gassed. You know, people say, oh, well, on Strickland, he should have got his fight because, you know, he was going forward and he was doing his thing and, you know, applying pressure. Well, was he looking gas doing it? Probably not as much as Paddy, but he didn't look the freshest, you know. It's kind of the same argument I'm making for Paddy here. He's just doing his technique, and just because it doesn't look the best, just because he doesn't look the freshest, just because he looks a little bit gassed, that doesn't mean that he's doing bad per se. That just means that he looks a little bit crappy right here. Now, I want to move on to this part right here. You know, awesome choke attempt from Paddy, and it's just really squeezing the head. We'll have skip a bit here. But he's just squeezing his round head, you know, a really good squeeze. You know, he probably could have got it if he'd been positioned a little different, but he pops his head out, you know, good hip position on Gordon, getting his hips around Paddy, around him, so he can pop right out, get leverage, you know. Paddy's not going to be able to finish that at all with Gordon behind him, and Gordon's trying to capitalize and use his grappling gear and his wrestling IQ, but it's just not really going to work, and this is kind of what Gordon's doing. Now, Some people would say Gordon's looking dominant, and during the fight, I even thought he looked a little bit dominant. But, and this is, I want to highlight this. This is some blatant, just back of the head shots from Paddy. Like, you know, Herb did give him a hard war, or will give him, I spoiled it, hard warning in a bit. And I wonder if that factored into a bit, because those are just some blatant back of the head shots. We're going to move on a bit here. 230, oh no, 212 here. This is just some more, you know, and I thought Gordon was being dominant, riding Paddy against the fence, but then I look back and he's just leaning against him the whole time. Pathetic takedown attempt by Gordon. That he just lifted it up, you know, probably exhausted himself, or he would if he wasn't, you know, probably super durable. You know, it just wasn't that good of a takedown, and he does this even again, you know. Paddy's able to break it up. Gordon gets a couple shots off. Those were really flush shots. That hurt Paddy a bit there, you could tell, or at least he had a little bit of a hurt look on his face when that happened. And he fires back, you know. He can take a hit. A guy like Paddy can take a hit. So can Gordon, but, you know, and they fire back a little bit. This is probably one of the best exchanges of the whole fight right here. I'd like just highlight this. They just go back and forth just a little bit right here. This is probably the best little flurry between them this whole fight. And it ends right there. Then it's more just Gordon goes back to this wrestling, but it's just really kind of weak. We're gonna go back a bit. Gordon goes back and did it. You know, little guy takedown on a big guy. Gordon could do that if a guy was smaller with him, break his weight against him. But a guy like Paddy, that's just not going to happen, you know. Paddy's just, he's built different in a way that Gordon's not going to be able to handle with his body type. You know, and if Gordon would have realized that during round one, he would have had a much more successful fight. You know, leaning against the cage here, and another back to head shot. I guess that kind of wrapped around. I don't know. Anyhow, he just didn't look too good for Jordan to be leaning up against fence. Paddy will break it up and land a couple good shots every once in a while. Neither of them are hitting that, like, neither of them really have that knockout power. They're both kind of hitting each other, but, you know, they do have knockout maybe on lesser opponents, but definitely not on each other. They're both going to be too dang durable. That's what it's going to come down here. But this is another really good flurry, you know. We'll skip to, you know, it's kind of funny. I thought Gordon was the one who eye-poked Paddy there. And I guess that, I don't know, this is kind of interesting. I thought that Gordon eye-poked Paddy, but I guess that, I don't know, because he threw that, then Dean called it. That was just kind of weird. I don't know exactly what happened, but I guess Paddy got him in the eye. That was a hard warning as well, you know, or, you know, and that probably does have to factor in some of the back headshots. You know, Gordon doesn't take that much time. He has a lot of damage. I just want to go from 6 till the end. Now, look, Paddy has a really dominant last 6 seconds, and he looked really dominant in that exchange around the 20-second mark, you know. He ended the round good, then he hypes up the fans. So important. It's these little things, the devils in the details. He hypes up the fans. At this point, I have to say, Paddy says that he took the third round off because he was up 2 rounds. Gordon just looked like dog poo 2 rounds. He just leaned on him and didn't do much. I don't know. I think it's probably 2. Now, I disagree. Every fighter should try their hardest to win, but I'm playing devil's advocate for Paddy here. Gordon had 2 such bad rounds that Paddy taking off the 3rd round, and I guess he went and ate a Twinkie in between rounds or something. I don't know. Ho. I could see the argument being made that he's up 2-0. Devil's advocate, I could see it. I don't think Gordon's up anything. He had 2 bad rounds. Come on, people. You know, you guys are smart. You guys will see that too. We move on to the 3rd. Yeah, so Gordon, I went and double checked between this round and the last round, he went back to his coaches and he said, "Am I losing? Am I losing?" It's like, you shouldn't have to ask that, bud. You should just fight your hardest no matter if you're losing or not. And he knows. Even he knows. He's been doing nothing but leaning up against Paddy, playing butt touch with him for 2 rounds. It's been pathetic. He is losing. And I think that, an argument could be made that he is losing to who cares, you know? We're going to go to this third round here a bit. And we're going to go right to 4 minutes and 30 seconds because they do nothing but, play a little bit of butt touch this first 30 seconds of this round. And as you can see here, Gordon, he goes right back to it. He just goes and he locks up and he just leans against Paddy again. This time he actually lifted him up and got the single leg on that takedown. Really well done there. Gets his hips above him and, is able to work that top. Anyhow, does pretty decent work in that top position for just a second there. And, but yet again, he's just kind of leaning up against Paddy. At least he's on top this time, trying to work that leg a bit. But, he's not doing much at all, And I think that's reflected really a lot in this round. It's been reflected the whole fight. Jordan's just getting Paddy up against the cage, and he's just leaning on him. And I don't get why, you can say, oh, he's in dominant position. He's dominant control. Well, look, it's this whole round. He's just leaning on him. He's not really hitting that good. He's just leaning. Well, it's obvious by now you can't win fights, and especially in Gordon's position. He's an uncharismatic little freaking man, and Paddy's the big boy. He's a big charismatic Chad. What do you think's going to happen if you just lean against him for 3 rounds? They're going to give it to Paddy just because you're kind of a weenie. I don't make the rules, that's just what the UFC is going to do. You think you're just going to lean a guy up against a guy? You got to make it exciting, Look at Joe back there with his eyes. He doesn't care. He's not doing, he's not even going, like how you don't even have Joe caring. And at this moment, DC made a dumb comment, and this just feeds into the whole robbery. DC said, oh, he's leaning against, controlling him against the cage. And, but we haven't, he said something against, oh, he's just been controlling. But then Anik said, there really hasn't been enough action to really call it. There hasn't been enough action to call it either way definitively. And I think that kind of sums up the whole fight, is there hasn't been enough action to call it definitively either way. It's just been Gordon leaning on him for the majority of the fight against the fence, and Paddy breathing. I don't know if he has a little bit of cardio issues or what, but there hasn't been a whole lot going on. Now we're going to skip forward to, let's see, 2:10 here. And Ert Dean comes, and I heard this with review. He even steps forward and he says, hey, well, I got to see some action. I guess they said that's his third soft warning, something along those lines. So Gordon breaks it up a bit here. I think Paddy gets a couple off. Now he breaks it up. And Anik, he said right here, he said, that's been the only significant strike that Gordon's landed this whole round. We're more than halfway over the round, and, Anik just said that's been the only significant strike that's happened this whole entire round. We're 2 minutes, and we're less than 2 minutes. So, I mean, you get less than 2 minutes into the fight, and that's your first significant strike of the whole entire match, and you think you won people think you won. I'll say Paddy hasn't been doing a lot, but he was somewhat landing a bit in that breakup. I didn't highlight any of that, but he was able to break it up and land a couple of longer arm shots. Then here, Gordon gets booed at this point because he's just going to go and lean again, people say Gordon won. Maybe he did win. Maybe he was controlling the whole time. The argument could be there, but no one has played the advocate for Paddy Pimblett. Gordon hasn't done jack. And I think what's playing into that is a miscommunication where Paddy said he took this round off, but he really didn't. You know, there's a couple different things going on. There really was a couple different things going on in this. You know, where Dana White said that, you know, there was a whole lot of things, and I think that played into it. But, you know, no one's been Paddy's advocate this whole time. And I just want to go ahead and say, you know, Gordon didn't definitively win this. This was far from a robbery. I personally think he did jack. He did nothing but lean up against Paddy and kind of play butt touch with him. And I think Paddy might have even looked better when Gordon was leaning against him. Now here, you know, Paddy goes for, or Gordon goes for that takedown, but I think that Paddy's able to get on top and end here. I know that it's just more leaning. I have it over here. 51 seconds we'll skip to because it's just more leaning. Yeah, Paddy goes for a takedown. Just a stupid, you know, stupid takedown against a guy shorter than you. Story of Paddy's fight, this fight. But, you know, Paddy said, people are saying Paddy looked weak this fight and his, you know, his skills weren't there. I will say his striking didn't look the best. But his wrestling IQ is pretty good here. You know, he gets his hips up, he pops out the back. You know, he tries to go for his back, but Gordon's able to hit that kind of inverted Granby there. You know, get up to his feet. You know, Paddy goes for a little takedown here. You know, we can even skip forward to 20 because not much happens. Now it's kind of Paddy leaning, and you know, Paddy says he's tired. At least he did in the post interview. And he's coasting this one out, which I do believe. He thinks he's up, he's coasting, and he's just landing a couple shots. And that's what Paddy's been doing. He's been making sure he looks good at the end of the rounds. You know, even if he's tired, you know, he gets his back. And realistically, if this had been a 6-minute fight, I want you guys to think about where Paddy is right now. And you're smart, so you probably already are. But he has Gordon's back. If he could hit a rear naked choke here, which he almost did, he could if he didn't start screwing around, shaking his head, and, you know, sticking his tongue out like an idiot, you know. But, look, he hypes the crowd up, and that's so important. That's why he got it. It's because he's the charismatic guy. He hyped the crowd up at the end of every round, looked a little bit better at the end, but really, the fight wasn't that eventful. And, you know, he has a stupid look on his face because he knows Gordon just leaned on him for 3 rounds. And judges are going to be able to spin it as his win. That's why he has that little smirk on his face right here. He knows exactly what he did. He hyped the crowd the right way. You know, Gordon didn't really do anything. And, you know, devil's advocate, you know, an argument could definitely be made for Paddy here. It wasn't definitive Gordon, and it was far from a robbery, not even close to a robbery. It's not like it couldn't be the farthest thing from a robbery, you know, but it definitely wasn't even close to a robbery. It was a pretty even call. It could have gone either way, and that's the way the cookie crumbles. I hate to say it, but, you know, that cookie crumbled that way because of a certain few characteristics that Paddy had that Jordan didn't. If Jordan had the style and charisma of Paddy, if Paddy had the charisma of Jordan, the fight probably would have went the other way, to be honest. That's just the reality of the sport of UFC at this point. It's a bummer, but you got to go out there and you got to do more than lean on the guy. And if you're going to be a little, you know, uncharismatic twerp, I only know him as Gordon, and Gordon, you know, probably called them both a million times, you know. I mean, there's a reason why, you know, they fought each other in the first place. There's a reason why he was considered an easy matchup for Paddy, you know, and he didn't prove that stylistically he had a chance. He honestly did. He honestly had a chance, but, you know, He went and he leaned and he played butt touch for 3 rounds, and he just didn't look that good. Not good enough. Anyhow, that's the best 2 cents on the block coming from Big B live. Best take there is. Paddy, devil's advocate for him. Played it today. It's okay, you know. He's not a bad guy. He's not a bad guy, you know, but should have he won this one? Probably not. Did he? Yes. Could have gone either way. That's Big B's 2 cents, best 2 cents out there. I know you'll love them. I know that you'll like it. I know you'll comment it, and I know you'll subscribe to it. Me, Big B, coming at you live. Bless you. Thanks so much for tuning in. Take care.